Back with another episode of On the Bench presented by The Bench Market. Pleased to be joined by my guest this week, Vees defenseman Nico Somerville. Nico, it was a really successful week last week for the Vees. Obviously, a long layoff before playing on Saturday night. 7-1 win over the Vernon Vipers. Any win against Vernon feels pretty good, especially in that kind of a game. What did you see from Saturday night's contest?
Yeah, absolutely. I found that out quickly when I got traded here, that any game against Vernon is a big rivalry game. It's going to be a playoff game, and that's exactly what it felt like. The score obviously didn't show that, but it felt like a playoff game. We had those bumps and bruises of the playoffs, so yeah, it was great to have before playoffs.
You're a guy who's been experienced in that playoff hockey before, obviously coming here from Victoria and playing with the Grizzlies. You had a bit of a run the last couple of years with that team. So when it hits the month of February now, does the excitement start to build a little bit that you know what's coming up and what's on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. Since Christmas break, I kind of had these dates marked in my calendar. No, it's a whole different atmosphere. The playoffs are, words can't really describe how I feel towards it, but it's just one of those things that as a player you look forward to, and you just can't wait to get it going.
Coming to Penticton from Victoria was your first time traded in your BCHL career, and I think maybe even your hockey career as well. So when you come in here to Penticton, what were your first thoughts here with the Vees? And then obviously as you've been here now about a month and a half or 2 months now, what are kind of your thoughts on this?
First initial reaction, probably in awe about the rink and the facilities, as anyone would be. Just all around, I was impressed with everything from the coaching staff to the group of guys that they have behind the scenes, like Kersey. We got Jono in there. All around, it's a world-class organization, and, everything they do to their best of their abilities, and it definitely shows.
You're a Port Alberni kid, grew up on Vancouver Island, played a lot of your hockey out on Vancouver Island up until you got traded here. What was your experience like through minor hockey going through Vancouver Island? Because I know obviously there's a lot of different facets to play down there. There's a lot of hockey down there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up for the most part in Port Alberni, but we were kind of bouncing around all over the place. So I lived in Comox, Nanaimo, Victoria, Alberni, obviously. But yeah, the majority of it was in Port Alberni, and then 6 years in Victoria for the junior there. But yeah.
So coming into this year, obviously your 20-year-old year, and obviously an experience that you get to come and play here now and to kind of finish out your career here with the Vees. But I wanted to go back to, you mentioned your minor hockey and how you've lived in so many different places, and as you go along, and now being here in the Okanagan is kind of like your first time being away from family, away from Vancouver Island. Have you found that it's gotten easier as you've gotten older? Is it kind of, hockey players obviously have to move around at an early age, but has it gotten easier for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you get older, it definitely gets easier. But, I moved down to Victoria when I was 14 years old, so that in itself was a big learning curve for me. I was living with family still in Victoria, but, it wasn't mom's cooking, so no, it's definitely made me into the person that I am today.
You're going to American International College next year, committed to AIC, and obviously, the hockey there is good hockey. They're a team that's really on the rise and a program that's on the rise, but as well, the academic part of it, you got to have the schooling part of it. Is there anything that you're looking at from a schooling standpoint of what you might want to go into?
Yeah, I think for right now, I kind of have a more broad view of what I want to do, but one of the ones that kind of caught my eye is the sports management, and then my minor in like psychology or a business. So yeah, once we get closer to that point, I'll have a final decision, but yeah, it's one of the top runs.
So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions just to finish this one off, and first off, I know you've had a chance to be with this team for a little bit now, for a couple of months. If you had to live with somebody on the team for the rest of your life, who are you picking?
Oh, that's tough. I'm living with Darwin Lacaduke right now, so I'd have to say him just because I don't want to throw him under the bus. But no, me and him, I'd probably have to say him. Me and him, we've played together for the last 2 years. This is our first time living together, but we know each other really well off the ice. I'd basically call him a brother of mine. Yeah, Darwin.
So lastly for you now, you've got 6 other defensemen, including, that you practice with every day and then obviously get into games with. And is there anybody you kind of bonded right away with on the back end? Obviously you mentioned Darwin Lacaduke when you came here. You had an opportunity to really, have a guy that you've been familiar with. But is there anybody in the back end that you've really just clicked with right away?
I think for the most part, it was everyone. Like I got here and everyone was welcoming. They were all friendly to me. They were understanding my situation, and I think for the most part, there wasn't really one guy who just stuck out to me. Everybody was that guy. They all kind of stood out in my mind, so it was nice to see.
Very diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
Thanks. But appreciate your time. Thanks for this today, Nico, and I was glad getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
Join me next week for another episode of On the Bench presented by The Bench Market, where my guest will be Vees defenseman Ethan Martini.